Kim and I started the teaching, I guess it was in like September. Yeah, alternating nights teaching this class, and we were interested in teaching an embodiment practice after having both been really like dissociating from our bodies throughout the whole pandemic, just like, you know, Netflixing and doing whatever we can to just like not feel the pain of what was happening all around us and just the grief and the hardship of the last 2 years. Which was like such an effective strategy to get through that time. And then it was just feeling like I was feeling really fragmented as things were like starting to open back up, and it felt like I really needed to inhabit my body again. And so the intention of this class was to do that. And it was also part of this realization, like the more we inhabit our bodies, the more we feel the pain and the grief of what's happening, and the more we're moved to change things, right? And more we're moved to make change. And I know you know this because you've had such an intimate relationship with yoga in your life too, but that yoga is such a fantastic tool for doing social justice work, because it's at its core, at its foundation, it is about liberation. It's about freedom from suffering, and on an individual level and also a collective level. So it felt really radical to come back into a space together again with that as the intention. Like, how can we become more embodied so that we can be better ambassadors of change, and so that we can, you know, push forward this movement for justice and liberation. So that was sort of the backdrop of the class. And the last few weeks, I guess maybe the last month or so, we've been talking a lot about different characteristics of white supremacy and how they live in our bodies. And one of the, you know, we spent a week kind of thinking about this characteristic of urgency. Like, something in white supremacy culture is that everything is urgent. It must be done now. And how does urgency feel in our body? What does it feel like when the world is telling us something is urgent? And so we worked on like recognizing what urgency feels like, and then finding the antidote to that through breath and movement. And then a couple weeks later, we started talking about this other characteristic of white supremacy, which was perfectionism. And how does perfectionism show up in our bodies? What does perfectionism feel like? Where do we have the sensation of I need to be perfect? And how do we find the antidote to that through movement? So as I was planning classes for this week, I was kind of ruminating on those two characteristics in particular, and still the sense of urgency really is the one that's been sticking with me. And you know, the week that we went through that, we started talking about what it feels like to move at a liberatory pace. Like, what does it feel like when you move at a pace that feels like liberation rather than urgency or constrained? And so I have this idea of like what a liberatory pace is. And I was reminded of this quote from Adrienne Marie Brown, where she says that she's reflecting on social justice movements. And she says that we need to move at the speed of trust. That's where we find liberation, is in that like relationship building. We need to move at the speed of trust. And so I'm thinking about like the pace of a liberatory pace is also the speed of trust. And then similarly, just that same week, an astrologer I follow also referenced this quote by Adrienne Marie Brown, and to her, the speed of trust was the speed of the earth. I was like, oh, that just like really resonated for me. It's like, that makes so much sense. The speed of trust is the speed of the earth, and that's the liberatory pace. And so as I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about the time of year that we're in, and I'm thinking about resisting that sense of urgency and moving at a liberatory pace. Like, this time of year asks us to slow down. Like, the days are really short. It's telling us to like stop doing so much and reflect and sit back. And when I'm thinking about this from like a social justice perspective, like, how anti-capitalist is that? If we actually did slow down, if we actually did move at the speed of trust and the speed of the earth, and we use this time of year to do what Earth is asking us to do, which is hibernate and integrate and just like do that deep work. So I've been getting curious about what sort of the archetypes of seasons feel like in our bodies, and how we can use embodiment practices to root more deeply into Earth's rhythms. You know, we have reflections of Earth's rhythms in our bodies already. If you're in a menstruating body, you have a body that moves in a 28-ish day cycle that has sort of a summer coming up as you ovulate and the winter as you bleed. And if you're a breathing person, we all breathe, we have the same thing. It's like the inhale is our spring and summer and the exhale is our fall and winter. And so there's these physiological reflections of this reality in our bodies. So just like sort of the fractals of this, like we are the earth and we need to move at earth timing, and that is liberatory pace, and that is radical right now to recognize that. So as we move through the practice tonight, we'll start on our backs and we'll move into some hands and knees and then standing postures, and then spend the last maybe 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes in restorative postures. I want us to think of that arc or that circle as seasonal. You know, as we start on our backs, we can think of like winter waking us up into spring, and we're going to move into the spring and summer of our practice as we try more vigorous poses, and then wind back down as we find the fall and winter of our practice tonight. And then similarly, I'm curious what it might feel like to think about where those sort of archetypal seasons live within each pose. So we might pause and consider a posture that we're in and think about, like, try to embody the qualities of summer in that pose, and then embody the qualities of winter in that pose, whatever that means to you, as a practice, as an exercise in getting the body familiar with moving at Earth's pace. Does that make sense? It's an experiment, so it's something I've been trying for myself the last few days, and it's been really interesting. So that's what I have for us. For the practice, you can put your blocks up towards the top of your mat. We're gonna come to those once we get up to our standing postures. We're not gonna use the bolster till the very end of class, so you can kind of set that aside. And then we're gonna start on our backs, but I'm gonna have you kind of scoot your body up so that you're pretty close to the top of your mat. And then I'll have you either keep your socks on or have a blanket against the ground, because we're going to be doing some slidey stuff. And so you'll want to have room for your legs to like extend out in front of you and then come back in. So you can come on down to your back as you're ready. And we can think of this very beginning of practice, if you could like imagine this part of your practice as like the mid-January of your practice. It's still kind of deep winter, but you know spring is on the way. You know you're going to be finding movement soon. There's a little bit of an initiatory energy. There's a lift even as you're settling into this stillness. And I'll invite you just to start coming into your breath. You don't have to make any big changes to your breath cycle right now. You're just noticing the way it feels as it comes in through your nose or mouth and moves down into your lungs, and the way it feels as it moves back out. And you might start to get curious about how your body is moving to make space for bigger breath now that you're giving breath some attention. And then using your mind, start to make a map of your body. So notice where your feet are, notice where your toes are, your heels. Notice your ankles and your shins and your knees. Feel for where your thigh bones connect into your pelvis. Attune to any sensations you have in your belly or your low back. Feel the parts of your back that are making contact with the ground. Feel into your arms. And then feel the weight of your skull against the ground. Okay, if they're not already there, you can bring the bottoms of your feet to the floor and then heel toe your feet out so they're about as wide as the width of your mat. And then we're just gonna, at your own pace, let your knees rock from side to side. And this can be super slow. It can be more like one breath, one movement, whatever feels natural to you right now. Yeah, I see some stretching. That's nice. You might reach your arms up overhead and feel the full length of you from fingers down to your knees. If you were to liken this part of the practice to a time of year or season, we might be sliding into February. You might be seeing some of the bulbs poke their little green tendrils out of the ground, getting ready to bloom. Okay, so we're gonna warm up our hamstrings a little bit because we'll be doing some stretching of them later. So this is where it's helpful to have your feet on a blanket or socks against the wood floor. And you want to scoot yourself pretty close to your heels so that your legs have the full range of extending long in front of you and then pulling back in. So what we're going to do here is, as you inhale, push the blanket away from you using your feet, so lengthening your legs. And then as you exhale, drive your heels into the ground, dig your heels into the ground and drag the blanket back towards your pelvis. Yeah, so you should feel your hamstrings working as you're doing that. The backs of your legs should feel a little bit warm. We're just going to do that several times at your own pace. So you're really digging the heels down as you drag the blanket back. And then connecting that movement with your breath. So inhale as you extend the legs and exhale as you drag it back in. Take it maybe 3 more times. And when you finish those last few rounds, then you can reach your feet up into the air and stretch your legs long towards the ceiling. So with your legs lifted, it might feel good to kind of roll your ankles or flex and point the feet. It's starting to bring some movement in through all the little tiny joints and bones and muscles of your feet. All right. So while the legs are up here, go ahead and find one of your blocks. And we're going to bring the block between our hands and lift it right overhead, like right above your face, so that's up towards the ceiling. Yeah. Yeah. And then give the block a little squeeze so that you feel your arms igniting. Okay. We're going to take an inhale here. And then as you exhale, lower your right leg towards the ground and reach the block behind you. So block's coming towards the back of the room. And then inhale, lift everything back up towards the ceiling. And exhale, lowers left leg, block travels back. Perfect. We're just going to take that at your own pace, up and down. I'd recommend moving kind of slowly so that you can really feel the way your body is sort of connecting and firing to make this movement. Yeah, and then see if you can keep your feet flexed as you do this. And remember to give the block a little squeeze. Yeah. Okay, the next time you have one of your legs lowered, just pause there for a second. And I just want to point out to you that right now, you're basically in warrior 3 in a different orientation to gravity, right? Okay, let's swap out the legs and feel that on the other side. Yep, there it is, your warrior 3. Could you ignite this as if you were in warrior 3? Yeah, good, cool. Okay, let's bring all the limbs back up. And then we can relax the block down to the ground, draw your knees in towards your chest, and make any movements that feel good, that feel like you're releasing a little bit. And maybe some rocking, you may rock side to side or back and forth, or find happy baby. And when you feel ready, we'll start to make our way to a comfortable seated position. So you might rock and roll a couple times along the length of your spine to get there, or you may just roll over to one side and press up. Okay. So let's bring some attention into the shoulders since we're feeling a little like walking around in the cold all day today. On your inhale, go ahead and reach your shoulders up towards your ears and give them a good squeeze, like squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then as you exhale, open mouth, let your shoulders drop. Yeah, we're gonna do that a few times. So inhale, reach them up, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Exhale, drop. Do that like 2 or 3 times. You can do it at your own breath pace. Yeah. And then we're just going to start walking the shoulders. So you can start with your left shoulder, reach it up towards your ear and let it roll forward. And then do the same thing with the right shoulder. And we're just like one shoulder at a time, walking them forward. And you can kind of let your rib cage, your torso move with this, so it can be fluid. And then when you're ready, you can reverse this direction and walk your shoulders backwards one at a time. Okay. And let's go ahead and bring shoulders back to center, and we'll take the fingertips to the ground on either side of us. And then start to walk your left fingers out to the left and inhale, reach your right arm up overhead and find a nice big side stretch. And so here the right sit bone is reaching down into the ground. We'll take a big inhale and exhale. And we'll inhale as we come back up and find that on the other side. So we'll this time walking right fingertips out to the right, inhaling left arm up and over. Rooting down through your left sit bone, nice big inhale. And exhale. Yeah, this time as you inhale, reach both arms up towards the ceiling. So you're getting really tall through both of your side body. Exhale and relax your shoulders. And take another inhale here. And then exhale, twist to your left. You can let your hands come down to support you. You might take them to your knee or the ground behind you. And take a few breaths here. And as you're ready, you can let the inhale unwind you, reach your arms up overhead. And then exhale to the other side. A few breaths here. And as you inhale, go ahead and unwind, reach both arms overhead. And as you exhale, take your hands to the floor in front of you. And we're just going to start to crawl the hands forward and let the torso drape over your lower body. Since we're kind of crunching through the front body right now, I'll invite you to try to bring your breath into your back body. So see if you can inflate your low back as you breathe, your mid back. Okay, we're going to switch which leg is forward. So nice and easy, you can walk your hands back towards your legs. And then you might use your hands to support you and just swap out which one is forward. And as you're ready, we'll sink back down into the fold, using your hands to crawl forward. Okay, our next pose is going to be tabletop. So if it feels accessible to you, you might just grip the floor with your hands and roll over your knees, or you may come up to a seat and work your way around. As we're coming to hands and knees, let's go ahead and find the blocks because I think they may have wandered a bit. We can bring them back towards the top of the mat so they're accessible. So positioning our hands under shoulders and knees under hips, we'll start to move through cat-cow, finding an inhale as you reach your head and tail up towards the ceiling, and then exhaling as you round your body. And we'll just move through that, move at your own pace, and see if you can start to connect to the four parts of your breath. So there's your inhale, there's the retention of the inhale or that pause at the top, and then there's the exhale and the suspension of the breath, that pause at the bottom. And if you can think of those four parts as mirrors to the four seasons, your inhale then becomes spring, that pause at the top is summer, your exhale is fall, and that pause at the bottom is winter. So we're noticing how Earth's rhythms live in every breath that we take. So we're going to keep returning to that concept throughout the class. And when you feel ready for it, you can tuck your toes under and start to make your way back to downward facing dog. And this can be kind of a slow, exploratory down dog. In this part of our practice, we're moving into the late spring of practice here. This is bordering on early summer. So exploring the backs of the legs here, you may pedal out the feet a little bit or bend the knees a bit and reach the sit bones up towards the ceiling. And as we inch our practice closer to summer, we're going to start to bring some heat into the practice. So using your initiatory inhale, let's hinge forward and come to plank pose. And then pause there. Feel the summer of your breath. Feel the strength of the pose, or the summer energy of this pose. We'll take an inhale. And then exhale back, downward facing dog. Full round of breath there, full inhale, full exhale. We're going to do that a few more times, inhaling as you shift forward, plank pose. Pause and feel your strength. And then exhale back, downward facing dog. I'm going to have you take that a couple more times. Move at your own pace. Give it your own flavor. The next time that you find yourself in plank pose, we're going to pause there. And then using an exhale, gently lower your body to the ground. And bringing our hands underneath the shoulders, we're going to press down through the tops of the feet, reach your tailbone back. And then as you inhale, lift through your face, your throat, your heart. Feel your shoulder blades drawing towards each other and down. And then exhale, lower your heart, your throat, your face. We're going to do that a couple more times. Inhale as you lift face, throat, heart. Exhale, lower heart, throat, face. We'll do that once more. Big inhale. And exhale. And pushing down through your hands, let's come back to a tabletop. And then tucking the toes under, find downward facing dog. Great. Okay, so from here, let's look forward between the hands and start to walk the feet forward to a standing forward fold. While we're here, we're going to grab our blocks and take them underneath our hands. And just use them for support as we inhale for a halfway lift. Again, thinking just like Cobra, you've got a little bit of a lift through the face, throat, and heart here. Slight bend in the knees, tailbone and sit bones are reaching up. And then on your exhale, we're going to lower heart, throat, face. And we're just going to do that a few times, moving at your own pace. Inhale for halfway lift. And exhale as you lower. Let's do it 2 more times. Inhale to lift. Exhale to lower. And last time, inhale. And exhale. And you can let your arms come down by your legs, your feet, and just let the arms and whole upper body hang heavy, ragdoll. And then pushing into the feet, we're going to slowly unravel one vertebra at a time as we come up to stand. Okay. So we're approaching the height of summer of our practice. We're going to find some bigger movements. As we push down through the feet, we're going to inhale, sweep the arms out and up. Exhale, hinge at the hips and fold forward. Inhale, halfway lift. And exhale, fold. Draw your blocks back to frame your feet. And then we're going to step the right foot back, come to a low lunge. Getting stable through your lower body first. As you're ready, we'll inhale, lift the arms, low lunge. Good. So here's where we'll take a pause and try to feel archetypal energies of summer as they exist in this pose. So what I think of there is how am I engaging my muscles to support this whole shape? And what I'm doing is I'm pushing my front foot down so that I really feel this front leg working. I'm also pressing down through my back knee and back toes a bit, so the back leg is also supporting me. And then I have some strength through the arms. You might imagine you've got that block between your hands and you're finding a squeeze so that you've got some energy moving through your outer arms. Good. And then see if you can feel breath moving even as you hold the energy there. So let's take an inhale here. And as we exhale, we're going to twist to the left. You can let your left arm sweep back behind you and your right hand can come to that front knee. And then inhale, unwind, come back through center. And exhale, let your hands find your blocks. We're going to walk the blocks back in space, shift our hips back, and then lengthen through the front leg. The toes can draw away from the ground. Yeah. So it may be interesting to think about embodying fall or winter qualities here. And what I think of when I think of fall and winter, you know, those seasons are often associated with water and with air. So I think of the breath, and I think of how, like, breath as wind, moving in and out through the nose. And then let's inhale as we start to walk the blocks back forward. You can shift back into your front foot. And we'll tuck the back toes under, lift the back knee. And we're just going to find some cat-cow lunges here to bring a little movement into this. So as we inhale, we're going to lift through the head, widen your collarbones. And then exhaling, push into your front foot, let your hips slide back. And then your forehead can round down towards the front leg. Yeah, take that a few times. Move at your own breath pace, your own liberatory pace. Good. We're going to be heading towards Warrior 2 next. So the next time that you hinge forward, you can pause there and then spin the back heel down so that it's about parallel to the back of the mat. Yep. And as you're ready, we'll inhale, open the arms out nice and wide, long towards the horizons. Tap into the summer energy of this pose, summer or spring. So where do you find the strength and the heat and the warmth and the vitality? And then where does it feel like there is winter quality or fall? Like where do you feel breath? Where do you feel stillness? Where do you feel sort of the deep dark of the pose? And then we're going to reverse warrior. As you're ready, you can let the back arm drop down towards the back thigh. Other arm sweeps up and overhead. Now, while we're here, push into your front foot and lengthen that leg. So you've got a long front leg. And we're going to hinge forward into triangle pose. So as you tick-tock your upper body forward, we'll reach, reach, reach. Maybe you grab for a block or your shin. And then your other arm will start to reach up overhead. And then to draw us out of this posture, our top arm is going to reach up towards the ceiling. That's going to guide us back to warrior two. And take a nice big inhale here. And then exhaling as you cartwheel your arms around to frame your front foot. And then invitation here to step back to a three-legged plank. So you can plant your hands and then sweep your front leg back so it just hovers above the ground. Yeah. And then as you're ready, you can lower that foot and start lowering down to the ground. Chaturanga. Inhaling for cobra. Exhale, release. Tuck your toes under, downward facing dog. Let's go ahead and take a bend in the knees, gaze forward between your hands, and then walk your feet forward, standing forward fold. Inhaling for a halfway lift. Exhaling to fold a little deeper. Pressing into the feet, inhale as you sweep your arms out and up. And then exhaling, bring your palms together at your heart. Just take a moment to take stock, feeling into the left and right sides of your body. And then let's release the hands down by our sides for a moment. We're going to sit back into chair pose. So we'll take a bend in the knees, let the seat come back. And then if it feels okay for your shoulders, you can bring your hands to clasp at the base of your spine. From here, it might feel good to reach the fist down and open your chest up towards the ceiling. And then there's an invitation to come into a fold. So if you want to fold here, keep your knees bent and try to slowly glue your belly to your thighs. And then allow the arms to come overhead if that feels okay for the shoulders. Drop the weight of your head. And then maybe push into the heels and lengthen your legs. And then we'll release the fist down to your low back and all the way down to the ground. Inhaling for a halfway lift. Exhaling to fold. And then we'll take the blocks again to frame your front foot and step the left foot back this time, coming into low lunge. So as we set up for this, we'll find strength through the front leg, strength through the back leg, and then let the inhale lift our arms. Exhaling as we relax the shoulders. Good, full in breath here. And exhale as you twist to the right. This time your right arm can sweep back behind you. Maybe the left hand comes to the right leg. And then we'll inhale back through center. Exhale to let your hands find your blocks. And we'll start to walk the blocks back in space, lengthen through your front leg. Toes can curl up towards the ceiling and maybe your whole upper body hangs down. Feeling where winter lives in this shape. And then nice and easy, we'll start to walk the blocks back forward, come back into your front leg. And we'll tuck the back toes under, lift the back knee, and start to move through those cat-cow lunges. So as we inhale, we're widening the collarbones, lifting the gaze. And then exhaling as we push into the front leg, let the hips slide back. Taking that at your own pace. Tapping into the 4 parts of your breath as you move from each shape. And then the next time that you come forward, we'll pause there, spin the back heel down so it's parallel with the back of the mat, and then inhale to open up into warrior two. Feeling for the strength and vitality of this pose. And then also feeling for the subtlety of it, where the softness is. And we'll take an inhale as we reverse warrior. Let your back hand drop, front arm lift. And then press into that front foot, lengthen the front leg as you exhale forward, triangle pose. When you feel ready to come out of this, you can reach your top hand up towards the ceiling. Let that guide you back to warrior two. Big inhale breath. And then exhale as you cartwheel the arms around, framing your front foot. Invitation to step back to a three-legged plank. So as you step your right leg back, it will hover for a moment. And then exhaling as you move through chaturanga, inhaling through cobra, and then exhaling downward facing dog. Okay, so let's take a bend in the knees, gaze forward, and start to make your way back to a standing forward fold. Using your blocks underneath your hands here, we're going to take a little bit of kind of a twisting stretch. So we're going to start to bend the right knee a little bit deeper than the left knee. So your hips sort of become unlevel for a moment. And then pushing into the right hand, we'll inhale, lift the left arm overhead. You may find that as you're lifting your left arm, you can get more length through the left leg. Take an inhale breath there and let the exhale bring you back through center. Knees come back to parallel each other. And when you're ready, we'll find the other side. So this time, bend your left knee and then inhale, lift your right arm. Gently unwind, both hands come back down towards your blocks. Okay, finding soft knees, we're going to push into the feet and slowly unravel. We've got one more short standing series, and then we'll start to head back down to the mat. So I'm going to think of this next portion of practice as sort of the autumn harvest. This is what we've been working towards the whole year. We'll start to shift some weight into the right foot and then lift the left knee so that it's just hovering in front of you. You've got a block there. If you want to use that for support, you can let the toes kind of rest on the block. And then from here, we're going to inhale and lift the arms. Imagine you have a block between your hands, and you're going to give that block a little squeeze. So there's energy moving through the outer arms, the outer ribs. And from here, we're going to start to hinge forward into warrior three. If you want to, you can let your hands find your blocks, or you can keep your hands overhead, imagining you've got a block between them and you've still got that energy of squeezing the block between the hands. So you've already been in this shape. You were in this shape when you were on your back. And see if you can find the same energy of it here. Good, beautiful. Okay, we're gonna, as gracefully as we can, let our back toes find the ground behind us as we come up into warrior one. Beautiful. So here in warrior one, we're hoping to have our feet on like railroad tracks instead of a tightrope. So there's a little bit of space between them, and we're allowing our hips to shine mostly forward. They may be at a slight angle to the left here. Arms are reaching up overhead. And then we're going to push into the front foot and lengthen that leg. And you can take your hands here either to your low back, or you might find opposite wrists, opposite forearms, or elbows, somehow to keep your upper body open. And we're going to start hinging forward. We're going to take this slowly. As you're hinging forward, think about bringing your right hip crease back in space. And that might be easier if you really press down through the right foot. Maybe there's a little bend in the right knee. And then if it becomes accessible, you may reach your hands for your blocks. We'll just take like three big breaths here, nice and slow. And then taking a little bend in the front knee, you can step your back foot forward to meet the front, coming into a standing forward fold. And then we'll inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold and melt. Pushing into the feet as you slowly unravel. And take a moment to take stock of things. Noticing how one side may feel different than the other. And as we prepare to find that same sequence on the other side, you can start to shift your weight into your left foot this time. Get grounded there first, and then you can lift your right knee so that it's hovering above the ground, maybe using a block for support. And from there, we'll inhale, lift the arms, and find the strength of your arms as if you were squeezing a block. And from that strength, we'll start to hinge forward as we move towards warrior three. The back foot's going to hover above the ground behind us. Again, second time you've been in this shape on the side. There's energy moving through the whole inner leg of the back leg. And then as you're ready, you can let the back toes find the ground behind you as we open up to warrior one. And so our feet are perfect, yeah. Okay. Shoulders soften. And then we'll push into the front foot, lengthen that leg, and bring the hands either to the low back or to find opposite wrists or elbows. And as we begin to hinge forward here, we're going to go nice and slow. This doesn't have to be a big posture. We're going to encourage the left hip crease to sink back. And then you might grab for your blocks if that feels accessible to you on this side. Couple of big breaths here. And taking a gentle bend in the front knee, we're going to step the back foot forward, standing forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift. And exhale to fold. Let's plant the hands and step your feet back. Opportunity to go through one last vinyasa here, or if you want to press back to down dog or child's pose, you can also do that. So starting to wind down to the winter of our practice, the restorative portion, the deep introspective relaxation time. When you are ready, let's meet up in child's pose. From child's pose, you can start to grip the mat with your fingers and draw yourself up to a tabletop. Okay, I'd like to give us a chance to do pigeon pose here, but if you prefer to take a figure 4, you can do that as well on your back. If you do want to take pigeon pose, it might be easier to get into it starting from down dog. So you can lift your seat up towards the ceiling. And then let's start with the left leg first. So we'll lift the left leg into the sky and get some length along the left side. And then as we exhale, we'll bring the left knee towards left wrist. And let the pelvis settle behind the front leg. I think we're all fairly familiar with how to get into this in a way that feels comfortable for you. So as you settle in, you can use your props as needed. We'll take about 7 to 10 breaths for each side here. So they can be nice, slow, easy breath. And taking your time, we'll start to make our way to the other side. There's no rush to get there. It may feel good to pass through a down dog first. And when you're ready for the other side, you can reach your right leg up and find some length. And then exhale as you bring the right leg in and settle your pelvis behind it. And moving nice and slow, we'll start to make our way to our final down dog. You can slowly bring your hands under your shoulders and gently begin to lift your hips back towards the ceiling. If there are any final standing postures or movement you need to make before we move into more restorative postures, now is a good time for that. If you are ready to get set up for our first restorative posture, we're just going to need a couple blocks for this one. We'll be coming into a supported fish pose. I've been practicing this on blocks lately, just a little lower than usual, actually. I like taking the first block on its lowest setting. It just has a lot more surface area to support your shoulder blades. And then the second block will be on its second setting with a little space in between them. And we're going to be lying on this on our back. So as we come down, you'll want to kind of work the block to make sure it's supporting your shoulder blades. And it shouldn't feel like it's pinching anything. That might mean it needs to be readjusted. And then the second block's there to catch your head. You may find that this second block feels better on a higher setting. So the head can be lifted a bit higher. So to play around with that and figure out what feels best in your body. And then your arms can kind of just open wide so the tops of the shoulders are able to kind of fall between the two blocks. And then it may feel good to keep bottoms of the feet on the ground or find a butterfly shape or even just legs extended long. So that's one option to get into this shape. If the block ends up feeling like too much, another option is to roll a blanket. So you may try to roll up a blanket underneath the shoulder blades instead. So we'll have about 3 minutes in this posture. If that feels like too long or you need to move for any reason, feel free to do so. So we're going to start to make our way to our next supported shape. We'll be coming down onto our side. Let's all start on our right side. You can start to make your way off of your blocks. It might feel good to lie on your back for a moment and let your spine come back into its more neutral alignment. For our next pose, you'll probably want either a block or your blanket to use as a pillow for your head. And then we're going to be using the bolster as well. So as we make our way onto our right side body, roll onto the right. I'm actually going to use a block and a blanket. I'm going to put the blanket over the block. So that's going to act as support for our head. And then the bolster will line up with our right leg. So we're going to keep the right leg long and just let the left leg drape over the bolster. And then you can let your arms fall anywhere that feels comfortable. So you might have them kind of out long in front of you, like alligator arms, or you may tuck them in, hold onto your pillow. We'll have about 3 or 4 minutes on this side, and then we'll take the same shape on the other side as well. So we can think of this as having approached the deep and dark winter of the practice. This is the integration time, the transformation time. Allow yourself to do a brief body scan here and release any excess tension. So you might notice if you're holding tension between your eyebrows or your forehead. And see if you can let your eyes soften a bit more into their sockets. Notice if you're holding in the belly and see if you can attune to that and allow for some space, some softness through your stomach. And then let the full weight of your left leg rest into the bolster. You're really releasing the entirety of that leg into the support of your props. Slowly, we're going to start to make our way onto the other side. Now that you know where we're headed, you can begin to make your way onto your back and transfer your bolster to the other side. As you settle in, allow yourself to scan for any unnecessary holding. Checking in with your eyebrows, your forehead, your tongue, your teeth. And then allowing your right leg to weigh heavily into your bolster. So it's being completely supported by that prop. Our next pose together is our last pose of the practice. We'll be coming to Shavasana. However, if this feels really good and you want to just stay here for your Shavasana, that is totally acceptable. You can stay in this posture and enjoy this. If you would rather roll onto your back and slide your bolster under your knees, that might be another comfortable position. As we soften into these last few moments of practice together, I thought I would share a short excerpt from the book Wintering by Catherine May. She writes, "Transformation is the business of winter. In Gaelic mythology, the hag deity known as the Cailleach takes human form at Samhain to rule the winter months, bringing with her winds and wild weather. Her very steps change the land. The mountains of Scotland were formed when she dropped rocks from her basket, and she carries a hammer for forming valleys. A touch of her staff is enough to freeze the ground. Yet Cailleach is thought to be the mother of the gods, the gruff, cold originator of all things. Her reign lasts only until the beginning of May, when goddess Breed takes over and Cailleach turns to stone. In some versions of the mythology, Cailleach and Breed are actually two faces of the same goddess, youth and vitality for summer, age and wisdom for winter. As we so often find in ancient folklore, Cailleach offers us a cyclical metaphor for life, one in which the energies of spring arrive again and again, nurtured by the deep retreat of winter. We are no longer accustomed to thinking in this way. Instead, we are in the habit of imagining our lives to be linear, a long march from birth to death in which we mass our power, only to surrender them again, all the while slowly losing our youthful beauty. But this is a brutal untruth. Life meanders like a path through the woods. We have seasons when we flourish and seasons when the leaves fall from us, revealing our bare bones. Given time, they will grow again. You can start to slowly make some small movements, maybe sweeping your right arm up overhead and finding some length through your whole side body there. feeling into some deeper breath, big inhales that inflate your entire torso. You may start to wiggle your fingers, your toes. And then with as much care as you can towards your resting body, we'll start to make our way back to a comfortable seat. You can move really slowly, be gentle. And as we start to slowly wake up the body and come back to a seat, we will drop back into the rhythm of our breath, feeling into those 4 parts. Slow inhale, pause, slow exhale, pause. Wherever you find yourself, I invite you to bring your hands somewhere that feels meaningful to you. You may take a hand to the heart, a hand to the belly. You may let both hands drape across your heart space. And from this gesture of gratitude, I bow to the lineage of yoga, of which I am a guest. I bow to the native communities that have stewarded the land that we practice on and continue to take care of it today. I bow to this community. We'll finish our practice with a couple of breaths together. You can start by exhaling all the way. And take a nice big inhale. And exhale. We'll do that one last time. Big inhale. And exhale. Thank you so much. I hope you have a very restful evening in this deep December. Good night.